The following is a Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production.
Some recent things, if you don't mind. I mean, just
going
back, and I'm going to talk about the Yankees, okay? And
Please do.
The disappointment that this town has that they did not win the World Series. So they haven't won a World Series in now 12 years. Do you know, since they won that World Series in 2009, only 8 teams have won World Series. There have been a couple of teams that have won it a couple of times, the Giants, the Red Sox. That means 22 teams in baseball have gone longer without winning a World Series. They make the playoffs every year. Aaron Boone, subject of such vitriol in this town. This wasn't the New York Yankees this year. This was the Scranton Yankees. And he mixed and matched and put things together. Did he make mistakes? Yes, he did. But I have to look at his record. His first 2 full seasons in the Yankees, both of them injury-plagued, he won over 100 games each time. This year, he wins 92 games. And in the final month of this season, the best, most reliable pitcher on the Yankees was Nestor Cortes. Now, Nestor Cortes as your number one pitcher. What the hell are you going to win with Nestor Cortes? And that's no reflection on him. You're going to win a World Series with Nestor Cortes as your best pitcher? That's ridiculous. Let me shift over to the Mets. A disaster area. Steve Cohen, I guess, has good intentions, has no idea what he's doing. I'm not surprised that Theo Epstein had one meeting with him and said, bye-bye, I'll see you around. Will Billy Beane come? I don't know. They need some help, and they need some direction. And more one thing about the Yankees, get back to the team they had. Gary Sanchez, it's a sad case. You know, the man can't catch. I remember
can't throw out my grandmother, for crying out loud.
I remember must have been about 3 years ago, just a couple of months before Gene Michael died, and Stick and I had become really good friends. He took over the Phil Rizzuto golf tournament, and it was the Gene Michael golf tournament. And so we were talking that day, and I said, you know, the guy hits home runs, you know, he can learn how to catch. And he looked at me, I don't know if he was a sneer or a smile, and he said to me, Jesus, what the hell do you think we've been trying to do for the last 5 years? He can't catch. He'll never be a catcher. And you know something? I think he's regressed. And you know what happens? You know what's happened? You know what happens with guys? When you start thinking, you can't do. And he is at the stage where you can't think. There's a great Rizzuto story that he told me about Yogi. When Yogi was a rookie, Bucky Harris sent him up the pinch hit. And he said, kid, I want you to take an outside pitch to left field. So Yogi got up to the plate, and they were playing Washington, I think, Scooter said. And the pitcher threw 3 straight fastballs over the heart of the plate, and the bat never left the shoulder. He came back to the dugout, and Harris met him on the top step of the dugout. What the hell are you doing, kid? Why don't you swing? He said, you told me to take an outside pitch into the left field. He said, why don't you swing? Well, I'd get an outside pitch. You got to swing. And Yogi uttered such a perfect line. He said, Skip, I can't think and hit. And you can't think and hit. You think in practice. A golfer doesn't think on the tee or the first tee of the PGA Championship, but he thinks on the practice range. Chris Mullin didn't think was he squared up correctly on his jump shot in a game. He did it in practice. You can't think and hit. And so many things in life that don't have anything to do with sports involve you can't think and hit. You can't think and hit. We're going to talk about Kyrie Irving because he comes to my mind. I'd love
to hear your thoughts. And then I have one final question for you.
Okay. This is a full-fledged cancer, okay? He's disruptive. He's disrespectful to the fans, to the team, to the game. Last year, the Nets let him get away with missing games because he just didn't feel like playing. They didn't fine him. They didn't suspend him. That was their fault. Do you think Greg Popovich, Pat Riley, Tom Thibodeau, or several other coaches in the NBA would even think of having or wanting this guy on their team, as good as he is. He's a cancer. He's destructive. And one more NBA thing I got to talk to you about. You know the story this week about these players who were stealing money from the pension fund for medical issues? Well, one name stuck out at me, Darius Miles. You may remember Darius Miles. He was a number 1 draft choice. He was 19 years old out of high school. By the way, Darius Miles earned $62 million in the NBA, and he declared bankruptcy 3 years ago. At 19 years old, you have no idea what the hell you're doing, and so I do blame him because he blew the whole thing. But I remember it must have been 1997, and he was playing for the Portland Trail Blazers, and the NBA players were in contract negotiations with the league, so they would have meetings, and the meeting would take place in New York, but everybody didn't come to New York. But if, let's say, you were the Portland Trail Blazers, which he was, you went to a hotel, and you met in that hotel, and you listened to the meeting. I don't know if they were able to see it, but you were able to take part in the meeting. And not making it to the meeting was an automatic $10,000 fine. And Frank Burkowski would play 13 years in the NBA, and we developed a bit of a friendship back in 1997 when 96, when I was doing Celtic games. Frank was now working for the NBA, and he was the go-to guy for the Portland Trail Blazers as far as the league was concerned with the contract negotiations. So he told me they had a meeting scheduled for the previous week. And he said, and Darius never came to these meetings. I said, well, did he come to this one? He said, no. I said, what did he do? He said, the day before the meeting, there was a $10,000 fine. The day before the meeting, he said, I asked him, are you going to be there? He said, no, I can't, Frank. He said, well, what's the problem? He said, I got something important to do. What are you going to do? I promised my wife I'd take it out to dinner. And he handed Frank a $10,000 check. He was making $9 million a year. But the Players Union is the reason Darius Miles was making $9 million a year. And things like that bother me. The lack of respect. Guys like Sean Kemp, who could have been one of the greats. Guys like Derek Coleman, who could have soared, could have been unbelievable. The years I was with the Nets, we played the Utah Jazz 10 times. Derek Coleman feigned injury 7 times. He only played against Karl Malone 3 times. Malone would say, I want to play against you. I want the competition. And don't get me wrong, I really liked Derek. And the Nets screwed it up. They let him get away with so much crap. When he was a rookie, he was making $3 million a year. We had a Friday night game at home. Saturday night we were playing in Miami. So we had a 7 o'clock flight the following morning. Derek missed the flight. Bill Fitch was the coach. So we get to Miami, and Derek isn't there. He didn't get on the plane. And what happened was he called Willis Reed, and Willis said, we have a ticket for you. Go to Newark Airport, and you'll catch the next flight out. So he got to the airport. And he wanted to pick up his ticket, and they said, that's $287 or whatever it was. He said, well, it's not paid for? He said, no. And the league rules say if you miss a flight, you've got to pay for your own flight. He said, what do you mean it's not paid for? It's got to be. The team, no, I'm sorry. Derek turned around and went home and didn't play. Do you know what the Nets did at that point? The Nets at that point did not fine him, did not suspend him, and I remember one of the veteran guys on the Nets, really good player who played for the Chicago Bulls, real handsome guy who did a lot of television following his career. I can't think of his name now. He was a really good player. He said to me, they just lost this kid. I said, what do you mean? He said, they should have fined him whatever it was, $28,000 or $32,000 for missing a game. Not finding him a nickel. He's lost forever. And he was right.
The team became an enabler.
What?
The team became an enabler.
Yeah, it's a bad situation. But look, I got to tell you honestly, I'm enjoying baseball this year despite the man on second base in the 10th inning, despite the 7-inning game, despite the launch velocity and the exit velocity and all that bullshit crap. Excuse. I'm not allowed to use that word on a podcast. I'm sorry. I won't use
you certainly can. You just talk from your heart.
But I have been really enjoying. In fact, I finally discovered, not really discovered, I finally subscribed to Sirius Radio. And I spent this afternoon in the park relaxing, listening to the Houston Astros game against the Chicago White Sox. And it was a joy. By the way, those guys who do the Astro games, they're great, the radio guys. I really have to tell you, they're fantastic. I mean, it was a joy to listen to them. They told me everything I needed to know: high inside fastball, low outside curveball, just missed the outside corner. All the pertinent things you want to know. Fastball, blah blah blah. Histories of these players, where they played before. Pertinent information, not number stats, but pertinent information. And need more of that. You need more of that. It's not a. And you asked me a question that I really didn't answer, what I want to be remembered for. I remember Ralph Tyko giving me a call and saying, you want to be on my podcast. I remember getting into a cab with my wife a couple of years ago, getting in the back of the cab, and I was talking to my wife before I gave the cabbie directions, and the cabbie, without looking at me, he was looking straight at his head, he said, "Where to, Mr. Ross?" Now, man, that's beautiful. Okay?
Wow. That's nice.
That's beautiful. In New York City, the cab driver knew who the hell I was. That's
a touch of Frank Sinatra right there. It's your New York, your town.
Yeah, well,
Spencer,
it'll always be my town.
How did you phase out of broadcasting? You still have the voice. You still have the mind. How many years ago was it?
I also have a birth certificate. I'll tell you a quick story. Dick Vitale and I are really dear friends. We did the Dream Team in 1992 in Barcelona, and Dick and I have remained really dear friends. And it must have been about 7 years ago. Dick called me, or I called him, and he said, "Why aren't you working?" Much like you're saying, you're still good. You still know what you're doing. You have all your marbles. I mean, I do. I have my head's pretty good. Hey, listen, quickly. I can tell you the starting lineup of the 1954 Cleveland Indians. Vic Wertz, first base. Bobby Avila, second base. George Strickland, Al Rosen at third base. Left field, Al Smith, Larry Doby, and Dale Mitchell. Jim Hegan behind the plate. It was Lemon, Wynn, Feller, Garcia, and Narleski and Mossy out of the bullpen. I can do the same thing with the Phillies.
And then they met the Gents in the World Series. And
they swept them 4 in a row. Dusty Rhodes was the hero. I remember one game in that particular. Dusty Rhodes hit a home run, right field in the Polo Grounds was 277, but the upper deck jutted out 20 feet, and Dusty Rhodes hit a high, lingering pop-up to right field. And here was Dale Mitchell up against the wall, and when the ball came down, Bobby Avila, the second baseman, that's how long the ball was up in the air, was up against the wall too, and hit off the upper deck, and it was a home run. Anyway, so Vitale said, "I'm going to call this guy at ESPN." So I called the guy, and he gave me all sorts of plaudits. I know your work, and truthfully, let me tell you, you're better than most probably 3/4 of the guys we have here. I'd love to have you here, but there's one problem. I said, "What's that?" He said, "You don't have as much racetrack ahead of you as the guys we have." I said, "You just told me I'm too effing old." He said, "Yeah, and I'll go into a court of law and put my hand in the Bible and perjure myself and swear I never said that to you. But that's the way it is here." And I got X'd out because of my birth certificate, also by Jim Dolan. But yeah, I'm still ready. I'm still ready for I was the original broadcaster for the Nets, the Jersey Americans, in 1967. I was with them for 4 years before I took a full-time job at WINS News Radio. I'm still waiting for them to call me and to do a reunion game. I was the first. I was a history major at Florida State. I went to FSU on a basketball scholarship, and sitting in the coach's office one day, and I knew I wasn't going to make the traveling squad my junior year, and the coach coach was talking to me and two of my teammates. I remember their names, Rufus Ashworth and Ray Swain. They were really good players. And he gets on makes the phone call. He hangs up the phone. He said, gee, that was the local radio station. They want to do our games next year. I said, I can do that, Coach. He said, sit down. What are you talking about? I said, no, his name is Bud Kennedy. Hugh Durham was his assistant. He was a great guy. But anyway, I said, no, I'm serious. I'm serious. He said, if you're serious, I'll tell you what. Don't dress for practice tomorrow. Get a tape recorder. Go up to the press box. So I was a history major. I had no idea I was going to be a broadcaster. I thought I'd be a history professor. I loved my history professors, and I loved history. American history is one of my great passions, along with sports and jazz music. Okay, jazz music I may know more about than I know about sports, but that's another story for another day. So anyway, I made the tape, and I gave it to him. I forgot about it. I came back to school in the fall, and he called me in the office. He said, you're not going to make the squad. I said, yeah, Coach, I knew that. You didn't have to tell me. He said, but here's the good news. The radio station really liked your work. I said, great. He said, they want to hire you. I said, wonderful. He said, here's the deal. I'm going to keep you on scholarship, and they're going to pay you $10 a game. I said, we got a deal. And that's how I became a broadcaster. And that spring, FSU had great baseball teams. Woody Woodward was our shortstop at that time, and Danny Litweiler.
Milwaukee Braves.
Yeah, and Cincinnati Reds and New York Giants. And Danny was a wonderful guy. Was the coach of the team, and I became their first baseball announcer. So that's how I got started in broadcasting. And thanks to FSU, thanks to Coach Kennedy, I'm talking to you right now. So you wouldn't be talking to a history professor. Retired.
Well, you never know. I would like your views on today's world situation in a nutshell. Quickly, compare it to other parts of history that we've gone through. Is it
other parts of history we've gone through? I'm very attuned to the Civil War. I would recommend to your audience to read the most marvelous book ever written on the Battle of Gettysburg. It's called The Killer Angels. It was written by Michael Schara, Schara. It's the book that Ken Burns says got him interested in the Civil War, okay? It's the most marvelous book. He was my creative writing teacher at FSU, and we were kind of friends. He'd go out for beers. He was like, I was 20. He was like 24, 25 at the time, and we developed a kinship. He had gone to Rutgers, and Michael Schara, in fact, the movie Gettysburg, that was his, and he wrote two other books surrounding it. One was of Gods and Generals. They also made a movie of that. That was about the battle where Stonewall Jackson, Charlottesville, lost his life. And then The Last Full Measure, which was the story of the surrender at Appomattox. And he didn't write those other two. His son Jeffrey did. And Jeff Schara has written about 15 historical novels that are so on the money because he utilizes the people involved, like in The Killer Angels. There's a chapter Lee, chapter Longstreet, chapter Ewell, chapter, different, and in their words, some of it created, but it is so marvelously written and so eminently readable. I would recommend to you, it's still available, The Killer Angels, Michael Schara, Bauman's Books, which is the antique bookshop here in New York City. I've been in there to them, and I've said to them, you ever have to get a copy of The Killer Angels first edition? They said, yeah. I said, what did it go for? He said, they start at $3,000.
Wow.
I don't have a first edition. I most probably have given that book to 8 or 10 people, okay? And they all call me back and say, thank you very much. People are not interested in history, but interested in people. And a lot of people don't know that, Robert E. Lee was the commanding officer of Fort Hamilton in Brooklyn, New York for 7 years.
That's where I enlisted in the Air Force in 1965.
Now, you know who his adjutant was? His adjutant was Stonewall Jackson. And when I was in the Army, I was in a medical group, and we had reserve meetings at Fort Hamilton. The main street This is back in the 60s and 70s until recently. They may have changed it now. It was called Robert E. Lee Way. In New York City, in a New York City Federal Army post, Fort Hamilton's Main Street was Robert E. Lee Way. You know.
Wow.
Anyway, that's it's you know, I about a couple of weeks ago, I woke up one day, and waking up is just the best thing, the best gift you could ever get at my age. But I said to myself, gee, you know, I think back to when I was 15, 20 years old and say, would I want to go back? And I say, 100% absolutely not. Life is a short trip. I have been on this most amazing ride, full of some tragedy, but full of such love, warmth, friendship, and the ability to do something that I really love, surrounded by people that I really love. And growing up in Brooklyn those early years is so memorable to me and so wonderful to me. No, I wouldn't want to go back. It wouldn't be the same. It wouldn't be, the second time around wouldn't be as good. So I'm going to savor, love, and adore each and every day that I still have. And hopefully, hey, I speak to Lou Carnesecca every few weeks. He's 96. Despite the fact that he can't hear, he's got all his marbles. And you know, when I talk to Louis, I'll be sitting in our office, which is our second bedroom, and my wife will be out in the living room. She was out there one day with a friend, and after I got done talking to Louis for 25 minutes, I came out, and her friend said to me, "Who are you fighting with? Who are you yelling at?" I said, "I wasn't yelling at anybody." I said, "Well, we were so loud." I said, "Yeah, I was talking to Lou Carnesecca. Can't hear a damn thing." You know, so I got to scream. Louis is just he's really, really special, and that's another guy I'm just fortunate to have known and continue to. Do you know Lou Carnesecca calls me every year before the High Holy Days, Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, and every year before Passover. Every year, you know.
Whoa.
What can I say? You know, I mean, it says a lot about Louis, but I also think it says a lot about what I might be. You know what I mean? That I'm on the list. Okay, I'm on Lou Carnesecca's list. Wow, it's an honor.
Wow.
It's an honor.
You are a fellow chosen person. How about that? A Yidden, for crying out loud.
And you're a Landsman, my friend. Okay.
Beautiful. Hey, listen, we're going to make this a two-parter. I'm going to cut it in two, and what a pleasure it is to have your acquaintance. And
when are we going to do the secnd part? Oh, this is the second part.
This is the second part, but
okay.
We will continue it ad infinitum. I really love to have you as a guest. I love it that we're the same age and that we have the same feelings of keeping it together, keeping the brain together. That's what
mine's
it's
there,
about.
and yours is, and sei gesund. Okay,
my friend. Thank you, my friend. George, great show.
George, thank you.
Okay, Spencer. Take care
George,
of yourself.
thank you. Okay, you be well, and I'm looking forward to the book, Ralph. Looking forward
You'll
to the book.
You'll get it
okay?
in the mail. Would you do me one quick favor? Send me the address on the Facebook Messenger.
Okay, sure. Okay. Or how about if I text it to you? I can't text you. I don't really have your
just put
phone
it on
number.
Private message.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, good. We'll do. Okay.
And you'll get a copy.
Are the Giants going to beat the Dodgers?
Oh, God, I hope so.
You know, seriously, with Bueller, Urias, and Scherzer, I mean, in short series, that's unbelievable. I mean, I think the 20-game winner most probably is going to win the Cy Young, but my vote's with Max Scherzer. Okay, my vote's with Max Scherzer. On 7 straight,
okay.
he's been completely lights out. You know, for the Dodgers. And the Giants are just an amazing success story. You know, I checked at the end of the season, you know, in Las Vegas, the over and under in the Giants, the start of the season was 75 games. They won 107 games this year. Take a look at their lineup. 107 games, That's unbelievable. A friend of mine says, you know, the way they do it, they have a Jew and a Muslim. I don't know who the Muslim player is, but they got a Jew as the manager, Gabe Kapler, and they've got a great Muslim player, and they're really fun. The Giants. And the Dodgers just, I mean, the two Turners just blow me away. And you know that game that they won, the wild card game. This is why baseball is beautiful. Bellinger, Rookie of the Year 4 years ago. 2 years ago, Most Valuable Player. This year, can't hit himself out of a paper bag. He's batting 160. When the money's on the line, he gets a base hit, walks twice, and steals 2 bases. And a guy who was 8 for his last 72 at bat, Chris, it's a home run to win the ball game and put them into the division series. You know, that guy will never have to buy another meal in his life in Tinseltown in Los Angeles. You know, that
no
one
question.
home run, memorable.
No
Okay.
question.
Be well, my friend.
Thank you, gentlemen. It's been a great show, and we'll talk at you real soon. Comfortably Zoned Radio Network. Comfortably Zoned in a Vat, Opine Tar, George Grimm and I, talking about the book that we are so proud to have published September 11th. It's on Amazon. If you think about it, pick it up. Give it as a gift. Holiday season. Send it to the best baseball fan you know. Could be me. All right. Thanks, everybody. We'll talk soon. Adios and happy trails.
Bye-bye now.
Bye now.
Bye.
The proceeding has been a Comfortably Zoned network production. You are advised to keep your dreams wet, your humor dry, your children and grandchildren out of military recruiting offices and off the laps of clerics who wear dresses. Thank you for listening, everyone. Happy trails.